All right, it's setting that up. Will it let you do? Should I do YouTube? Well, I'm on YouTube. They won't let you do Facebook and YouTube at the same time, will they? They won't. All right, so look like it's just us here, at least for now. But we gonna go ahead and get started, and then as people trickle in, they can trickle in. So if Jacqueline and Deja, if you all both can introduce yourself and say where you from and what area you are working in birth. We'll start there first, and then we'll come back to talk more specifically about your roles and your journey so far.
Okay, so I'll go first. My name is Jacqueline Presley. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a midwife. I say community midwife, say traditional midwife, whatever you choose to say. And I think that was all the questions, right?
Yeah, for now.
My name is Deja Spence. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm currently in Las Vegas. I am a holistic full spectrum doula. I also have a yoni steam shop, so I'm a yoni steam practitioner as well. And I am excited to be here.
Well, thank you so much. We have someone who just joined. Hi, welcome. Um, My name is Kristen Farmer. I am, of course, hosting this webinar, Pathways to Birthwork, and I've been interested in birthwork since I was 16 years old. I wanted to be a midwife. That was the trajectory for me. That's exactly what I thought that I was gonna do. But the only issue was that I didn't know anyone in birth work. So I didn't really know how to go about getting into birth work. It was like I was on this island by myself where everybody else was sort of making their plans around going to college and what they were going to do afterwards. But I wanted to be a midwife. And the only route that I knew to take at the time was to go get my 4-year degree in nursing and then, continue on to get my master's to become a certified nurse midwife. But the only issue with that was that I didn't want to work in a hospital and I didn't want to be a nurse. I wanted to deliver babies and work with mothers, and I didn't really find it, at least in my way, in mind, necessary to be a nurse to do that. So long story short, I did end up going to college, to a 4-year university. I started off as a nursing major and then quickly was like, yeah, so I don't want to be a nurse, and I ended up switching my major to communication studies. And that's what I ended up graduating with. But I had still this burning desire to be in birth work. So even after I graduated, I started looking at other ways, and I finally found like some people who were in midwifery, but they were all in midwifery through the certified nurse midwife route. Even though I did start to make friends with them, and they were encouraging me like, oh, Kristen, you could do it this way and go this track. And I'm like, I really don't want to do it that way because I don't want to work in a hospital. I want to do home births and I want to do birthing center births. Um, so I ended up applying to the Utah College of Midwifery, and they denied me and was like, you need some more birth experience. And I was so offended. Like, what do you mean? I am destined to be a midwife. So I'm supposed to be here. So anyway, that actually led me to becoming a doula, right? Because I had never considered becoming a
Mm.
doula, or I wanted to go
Yes, you should have. What you need?
I wanted to go straight to midwifery. And so, but I'm glad that I ended up taking that route. I started volunteering and working, volunteering through Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals and Metro Health, doing doula work. Got really chummy with all of the midwives because I used to stalk them all the time and be on the labor and delivery floor. And that led me into the founding of Birth and Beautiful Communities. That's how I ended up, uh, becoming a founder of Birth and Beautiful Communities, because I had a relationship already with the hospitals, and I just recruited more women to come onto my team, and I trained them to be doulas, myself and India. We train the women to become doulas, and then and the rest is history, right? Like, so we know that the work of what Birth and Beautiful Communities has done, but I've since left Birth and Beautiful Communities. It's been 3 years since I've been gone from there, and really was trying to figure out my way around. I thought I had fell out of love with birth for some time, but then I realized, no, I never fell out of love with birth. I just really hated the politics of being a nonprofit and what comes along with getting government funding and all of that. I didn't want to do that anymore. So a part of that, so then we ended up, and when I say we, Marlene is on this call too. And Marlene, at some point in time, we'll have time for everybody to tell a little bit about their birth journeys. But we have actually re-entered the birth space, or I re-entered the birth space because Marlene never left the birth space. And so we have another organization now called All About Moms, where our ethos is around bonding and the importance of bonding between mother and child. And it's also there to preserve the sanctity of birth and motherhood through holistic practices, education, and services, because that's something that we really believe in. Like, we really believe in birth and motherhood to our core. So that's how we arrived here. And I wanted to do this webinar because, again, my 16-year-old self would have absolutely loved something like this, to where I would have been able to come and learn about how do you enter birth work? What are the different ways or the different types of birth work, right? Like, what are the different roles and different professions? I had no idea about that. And so this is sort of a nod to my 16-year-old self, and I desire to support and coach those aspiring doulas and those who are interested in navigating the birth space. So, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the very end of our discussion. But before we head into that, since this is a really small group, I really would like to briefly hear from Emily, and like we have the Jaya. If you all want to speak, you don't have to if you don't want to. And Marlene, if you could just come on, just say your name briefly and just tell us your connection with birth work, if you are in birth work or if you are just aspiring to be in birth work.
I can start if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
So my name's Emily. I mentioned this a little bit ago, but I'm a music therapist. And I worked in the NICU for 8 years, established a music therapy program in the NICU at Hillcrest, which is a Cleveland Clinic regional hospital, and did a lot of work in the maternal fetal medicine and labor and delivery, and left about a year ago to teach at the collegiate level, teach music therapy, and have missed that connection to mothers and babies and just care in general in maternal medicine. And so I have a friend slash neighbor who's a doula, and I reached out to her and asked her if she had any like info of how I could even start exploring the work, and she sent me this link, and the rest is history.
Oh wow. See, like we love a good word of mouth story. That's beautiful. Thank you. Marlene, you want to introduce yourself? Oh, I did say you didn't have to. That's if you want to. If you
Yes,
don't,
I will introduce myself.
okay.
Um, Hi you guys. I've had a horrible toothache, so I'm looking crazy, but I am a real person. I've been doing birth work since what, about 8 years now? 9 years, over 200 births in 5 different countries, 5 different states. So I'm like the traveling doula. I'm rebranding or representing myself to the world as Agape Code Birth Ambassador because I'll be doing a lot of global things now. Um, and my story is basically, I had a near-death experience that caused me to be disabled. So I did a lot of volunteer work and things like that. And I was going to go get back into the workforce and do coding. Well, at that coding meetup, I met a young lady who was finishing her doula website. And I was like, what's that? And so literally I went down this rabbit trail of doulas and midwives and all of that. But I remember as a youth, I wanted to be an obstetrician, mainly just so I could work with babies and not knowing that there was a midwifery, spirit call on my life. Um, so I researched it, found different trainings, found Mama Toto Village, and at the time, Kristen was bringing them up to train the doulas. So I just trained with that group and been with them ever since, and still on to the next thing with them. So that's my stories.
Thank you for that, Marlene. Um, is it Dejaya Black? If you want to introduce yourself and just
Sorry.
oh
It's
no,
Deja.
it's Deja.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Look, we got two Dejas on. Oh,
Deja. So I'm an aspiring doula. So I'm just here to get as much information as I can and see how I can move forward within the process. Um, just like you, I started in college trying to see if I wanted to be a nurse and, wanted to be a midwife. And I'm just like, I did not want to end up in the hospital. It was not something that I kind of looked forward to once I got, into like the momentum of things. So I changed my major to psychology. um, and then end up coming back home like after that. So um, I had my son about 3 years ago. No, sorry, it's been a minute, 5 years ago. 5 years. And I remember my traumatic experience in the hospital. And I would say that was near death experience for me as well. And I was, I'm just here, just trying to figure out, how I could help within like the doula workforce.
mhm.
Um, so it's like I'm here. Let me get some more information.
Thank you so much for being here. As I said before, I do certainly plan on doing more of these. This is just the first one, so it wasn't marketed so well because it was like the way my brain works. It's like, oh, I got an idea. We should do this, and then we need to do it now. So, um, so yeah, so anyway, thank you all. I know I done said that a million times, but I'm just so overwhelmed with gratitude that people even showed up. So I'm just like happy, right? But this is important because I feel like we are coming up on sort of this shift, throughout our universe, so to speak, where there is a push for this more feminine aspect or feminine perspective. And I don't mean that in a feminism way. I don't mean feminism. I mean Mother Earth, right? I mean Mother Nature type of way, right? Where things in our society and our systems have been so stiff and so stoic, and it hasn't had the heart and the love and the compassion and the joy. And those are the things that come with birth work, right? Because you are literally standing at the threshold of life entering the world. And what's more sacred and beautiful and nurturing and loving and compassionate than that time, right? Like that is one of the most vulnerable times in a woman's life. And to be there to support her and support the new life ushering in, coming into Earthside, is just, I look at that as being a blessing. Like this work is, you have to be called to this work. You know, this is not something that you can just look up and apply for, right, as a job. You know, this is like something that your heart calls you to. And what our aim to do on this call tonight is to help you all answer that call, you know, in whatever capacity that is, and we hope to be able to bring you to that. So with that being said, I wanted to turn to our two guests or guest speakers tonight, which is Jacqueline and Deja. And I want to ask both of you all, you know, how did you come into that calling? What was it that said to you, like, this is the work that I want to do?
For me, it was actually you, Kristen.
Hmm.
So I was on AmeriCorps working at the City of Cincinnati Health Department, and they had you guys that came down here. It was you, Jessica from Rude, and it was a infant mortality summit in 2018. I knew that I wanted to do birth work. I didn't know in what capacity. Like you, I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and then I found out they were glorified paper pushers and did no direct care. So it was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And I started looking into like doula stuff. And like I said, when you came down here, you spoke on the panel, and it was a couple of things. So one of the things was you were a dark skinned woman like me, and I don't really see too many of us in leadership roles, and where it was like it was a leadership role where you were captivating at that time, where it was like the way you talked, the way you spoke. I was like, and not only is she just like me, she got that hood on her too, like, and that was like something that was like you don't see that because it's like we're taught the code switch and we're taught to do all these things. So from that, I was like, I don't want to be a doula though. And part of the reason why, even though I've taken doula trainings and even though I own a doula agency, I didn't want to be a doula. And the reason why I didn't want to be a doula is because I feel like most times Black women get stuck at the entry level position. So it's like, it's not be a nurse, it's be an STNA. It's like not be this, it's become a medical assistant. It's everything that's at the entry level. We never think about what's next. And then I'm a mother of 7, and I wanted to have home births, and I couldn't find a home birth midwife. So it was like, it makes sense. Like this is a means to the end. This is for every little hood girl that wanted to do something and in society told us we couldn't. So it was like it was a means to the end. If I was gonna keep crying that I didn't have a home birth that I wanted, or I was gonna be that for somebody else. I can say I tried to walk away from midwifery at one point in time. We're going to get into that, but it was definitely about preceptorship and stuff. And when I tried to walk away, I went to a regular 9 to 5 for a hot little second, and it was terrible. I didn't like anything about it. I was looking at my coworker like, I don't like you. I don't even know why you're talking to me right now. It was just terrible. But I think if I had not met you if I had not seen you up there speaking, because I knew I wanted to be a midwife, I knew just like you, I did not want to be a nurse midwife. I wanted to do specifically be in home birth, and I didn't like school like that. I've never liked school. I've done it like I've been real good at it, but it was like I did enough. Like if it's past a certificate, I don't want it. And just like you, I went to I applied to MCU. I actually got into MCU, but when I got there, I realized it wasn't where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like I just kept following my calling, and that's basically how I got here. I took the apprenticeship route and getting ready to take my test for the second time because I took the test to become a certified professional midwife, and I didn't pass the first time. So I'm getting ready to take the test for the second time. And that's pretty much how I arrived here. But it was definitely, it was definitely a calling, but you kind of pushed me a little bit more once I seen you on that stage and you kind of talked about what Birthing Beautiful Communities was back then.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I did not know that at all. What you just shared, I did not know that at all. So thank you for that. And then you are taking or have taken the certified professional midwifery route. And please let me know, when is the test?
The test is March the 9th.
March the 9th. Oh, that's the same day as our doula refresher class. Well, you know what? I need to make a note or something like that, because I want to make sure that I send you love and light and prayers over your test.
Thank you.
That Jocelyn passed is already done. We are putting it in the atmosphere. It's done, it's done, it's done. I'm already telling you congratulations because you already passed, right? So we're gonna do it like that. Deja, what about you? When did you get that call in your heart? And you are a holistic doula, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So say that all my life I've had this calling, but all my life I've been like in healthcare. So I've always done like things like the natural route. Like, so when people, like when the people in my house, when they would get headaches and stuff and they'll pop pills, I'll go like find a plant. So I knew like way back then I was in, the health and wellness field. And so I attended Bowling Green State University for healthcare administration with a double minor in business and gerontology. I have a semester left. And while I was there, I'm just now connecting these pieces as I'm listening to y'all talk about working at the Cleveland Clinic, because I had an internship at the Cleveland Clinic, but it was to run hospitals. So it's funny because I want a home birth center now, and I went to school to actually run hospitals. But while in college, I helped my dog give birth. I literally started off this journey by helping my dog give birth. I couldn't afford to go to the vet. And I was like looking up all these YouTube videos. And then one day I seen her having contractions and I didn't know what to do. And I just started helping her and she let me help her. And then, it's crazy because one of her puppies passed away. And when the puppy passed away, something woke me up out of my sleep and I seen the puppy take its last breath. So I was like, dang, like, that's like some doulas are like end of life doulas, you know what I mean? And I feel like I was there for her from the beginning to even one of her puppies dying, and I was present for that. But it wasn't until I felt like a real strong calling once I got pregnant myself. So I have a 2-year-old, I have a 7-month-old, and I'm currently 3 months pregnant. I I already knew that I wanted to give birth at home. First, I wanted to give birth at a home birth center because I didn't know women were giving birth at home. But when I went to the home birth center, they didn't accept my insurance. And it was so hard for me to find a Black birthing team. Like there were like no Black midwives at the time. And then there were like 2 Black doulas. And so I was like, man, I don't know what to do because I know for sure I'm not going to the hospital. And especially like this was during the time of COVID. So I knew that because I didn't get the shot or anything like that. So I knew for sure I didn't want to give birth in the hospital. And so my doula said that she did unassisted, that, I didn't need a midwife. And so I was just like, okay, let's do that, And so I went through my whole pregnancy journey with my first one. And she didn't really show up until at my birth until like 30 minutes before I gave birth.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, man, I could have did this myself. So the second time I got pregnant, I literally did it myself. I didn't have a midwife because I couldn't afford to have a midwife. And that's when I really started diving into the doula work. So I assisted myself, and it was just me and my fiance. And so that's kind of the same thing I'm doing now. But although like my doula was cool, I feel like she didn't really prepare me for giving birth. Like I wasn't really mentally prepared. I still had a lot of fear, and I'm not saying that I wasn't going to go into it with fear, but for my first time birthing unassisted, I felt like she could have done more. And I felt like she felt like I was more of a low maintenance client, because I am a low maintenance person. Like since I'm in the holistic field anyway. Like I know most of the information, but I've never given birth before. And so I felt like she didn't really prepare me. And I was like, women really need to be more prepared than what she did. And so even though like we're not cool anymore, but we were still kind of cool after I had gave birth. And so I asked her, I was like, well, how do you, it just kept being on my mind. And I was like, well, how would you feel if I shadowed you? With your clients, because I'm really interested in this work. And she was okay with it. So I would shadow her at her prenatal appointments and things like that. But she was not sharp. She wasn't on point. Like she would keep having to reschedule prenatal appointments, or like she wouldn't show up to certain things. And although she knew so much information and knowledge, she just wasn't showing up in the right way. And I was just like, women need people who are going to show up for them and make them feel important. And like, if you're not really like a strong person, then it's going to be hard for you to feel like you can give birth at home when you don't have a doula who's sharp and on point. And so after I shadowed her for a while, I started going on my own journey of going into like online doula classes, and I started going to things that was like in person. And then I saw that UNLV held courses, because we couldn't, in order for us to get reimbursed, we had to get certified, because I didn't want to get certified at first. But a lot of women were coming to me for help. And at this point, I wasn't even a doula. They just seen me doing it by myself. So they started coming to me for help. And I was like, well, I was interested in this anyway, but now so many women are coming to me about this subject, then, I'm going to dive more into it. And that's when I started taking it more serious. Not that I wasn't taking it serious, but that's what made me get certified, because a lot of women came to me and they had insurance and they didn't really have the money to pay for it. So I took, some classes at UNLV, and that's how I was able to like get certified through the Nevada certification board. But really it's my own journey that inspired me to become a doula. And I was just thinking, like, there are so many other Black women in this community that need help, and we barely have any Black doulas, and Black doulas who are really showing up for their clients. And so that's what inspired me to become a birth worker. I know that's kind of long, I'm sorry.
No, thank you so much for sharing it, because you touched on so much. I mean, for one, there is a shortage of birth workers in the United States, period. There is a shortage of doulas, of midwives, lactation consultants, childbirth educators. I mean, the whole gamut, because there isn't much emphasis on midwifery in this way of birthing. It's more, hospital. And if it doesn't come through the hospitals, which, I mean, I'm not anti-hospitals. I think that every single professional has a role to play. I mean, because the truth is, the vast majority of women are capable of having a normal birth, right? And then for those women who struggle, or they have maternal morbidities or comorbidities and things like that, which make them high risk, then of course we need the OBGYNs and the specialists, and that. So yeah, I absolutely support hospitals and needing to, work with the population of people who absolutely do need that, right? But what about the population of women who don't necessarily need that type of care, right? And the reason why we think that we need that type of care, even though we don't necessarily need that type of care, is because no one educates us about our bodies, as women, as young girls, right? Coming into young adulthood and coming into adulthood. And so we already have this air of fear around our bodies and our body's ability to give birth. And that's a real big issue. And one of the education pieces that we do in All About Moms now is around educating young women about their bodies, because more females go on to give birth than those who don't. And so there should be an education component early on about the power of our bodies and how intelligent our bodies are. In the same way that our bodies are able to heal itself when we get sick or when we get a sore or a cut, it's the same way that our bodies are able to give birth, right? And to understand and know the power within ourselves is what Deja just touched on, was that her doula she felt like her doula didn't prepare her, right? And I think that that's where the childbirth education classes come in at, right? So, All About Moms, we had our childbirth education class workshop this past Saturday. And the moms who came, we had a mom who was about to birth. She's like due in a couple of weeks. And then we had a mom who was, more around a 5-month mark, but just thinking about all of the questions that they had at this stage, right? I mean, we have one who's literally about to give birth, and she still has so many questions, right? She hadn't been to a childbirth education class yet. She's been back and forth to the doctor in the hospital, but nobody has educated her on these certain things that's going on and happening with her body. And this is her second baby, right? Her first one is 12 now. She got a C-section the first time. This second time, she wants to try to go, for a vaginal birth. So, Marlene sent me all of these birth affirmations that I've been sending her because I agreed to go to attend her birth. But there's a role for the doula. And I think that sometimes the doula can prepare the mom for birth. However, I think that there is so much value in women being pregnant and coming together to receive that education together. Because then they're able to ask questions in front of one another who maybe somebody hadn't thought about that question or hadn't, and I think that I'm really big on sisterhood and I'm really big on community. And I think that there's a place for that so that the doula can focus on doing what the doula does, right? Which is to build the relationship and the bond with the mother. And yes, to educate her and to help to prepare her, to some ways and mentally, but we have to do that as a collective within the community. And so do the participants have any questions at this point before I ask the panel another question? Deja, did you have a question? You came on for a second. Deja Black.
No, I'm just changing diapers. I wanted you to know I'm still here.
Okay. Oh no, I was just making sure that Deja Black didn't have any questions before we move on to the next
No, I didn't have questions. I'm sorry, I'm washing dishes. But no,
okay.
I'm listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Jacqueline and Deja, can you all talk to us a little bit about the education journey part of it? I mean, y'all kind of both touched on it a little bit, before, but like I said, my 16-year-old self who wanted to become a midwife, and the only option that's being presented to me is for me to go to a 4-year university and then do 2 more years of a master's program. And all my 16-year-old self could think about was like, I was like, so I'm not going to be able to work with mothers and babies until I'm 24. Like that just seemed so far away and crazy to me, right? I was just like that. I kind of want to get into this now. I can't do that until, that's a long time from then, right? So can you both speak to us just a little bit about sort of the education and training journey that you have taken so far?
So for me, I started off at Midwives College of Utah. So I'm going to say there's 2 routes to become a certified professional midwife. You can do a apprenticeship route, or you can go to a MEC accredited school. There's only I want to say it's 3 MEC accredited schools, and they're all online. when I did like I did 2 semesters at Midwest College of Utah and quickly realized it wasn't for me. Actually, after the first semester, I knew it wasn't for me, but it was just like, okay, maybe I'm not giving it enough. And I had a preceptor who basically was like, I wouldn't be the midwife I am. I wouldn't be a midwife today if I didn't go to a MEC accredited school. So it was like she wasn't going to keep me on as a student if I didn't continue to stay at that school. So then I stayed on for a little bit longer. And after that, I was like, you know what? I don't care what you say. I'm going to find another route. And then it also became, we terminated that contract anyway. So I was like, I don't want to be in school. I don't want to be here. I'm unhappy here. So I looked it up and you could do an apprenticeship route. So the apprenticeship route is basically like, I'm going to say it's the homeschool of midwifery. So you have certain things that you have to do. So it's like you have to observe 10 births. You have to assist with 25 births, and then you have to be primary under supervision. So you like basically you're managing the whole process in the third phase, and then you have to do 5 additional births. And then it's like you self-paced. So they give you, it's called a CIB. So it's a candidate booklet to tell you what's information you need to study, and then you go over that. So it's like self-paced. You're going to teach yourself. You have to do a minimum of 2 years for the PEP process. It took me like 2.5. And then, like I said, you just have to study on your own. I chose that route for a lot of reasons. First of all, midwifery school was expensive. MCU was like $40,000 altogether. And when I thought about it, I was like, I really don't have $40,000. I'm a single mom. I have 7 kids, and it was just a lot. And then MCU just wasn't for me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it this way. I did take a lot of donations from the community. The community definitely supported me through this journey. I can say in my area, and I really think most of Ohio, there's not very many Black certified professional midwives. Honestly, I don't think there are any that are actually in Ohio right now. I think I know it's one in Canton, Ohio, but she's not a certified professional midwife yet. She took the test and she didn't pass. And then in my area, it's 3 of us. One of us is certified, but she's technically from Kentucky. If you know anything about Ohio or Cincinnati, Kentucky is really literally right across the bridge. Like that's our next door neighbor. It's her, and then it's me and another one, and both of us are getting ready to sit for our test. So when you even think about that, it was already like the odds were stacked against us. And so what we decided to do is we worked together and we decided to like kind of help push each other to study and go over things together, because it's like at the end of the day, it's self-paced. And I'm gonna say, like, if you choose to do the PEP process, definitely like read more, because I'm gonna say between both of my preceptors, I felt like it was more about the actual hands-on part, but nobody really talked about the reading part and the didactic part of it. So it was kind of that learning on your own and figuring it out. And then the test is a secret handshake within itself. And when I say the test is a secret handshake within itself, you know how you can study for the NCLEX and they got books for that and they got books for this? There is no book. Norm makes you sign this whole non-disclosure where you're not supposed to talk about what's on the test. So it's like you got to study the CIB and you got to hope and pray. And the way that they grade the test is interesting too. Like it's not like I went in it the first time like, okay, I have to get this amount right to be able to pass. But it's not like that. Each question is worth a different amount of points. So one question could be worth, depending on how hard it is. So one question could be worth 1 point and the other question could be worth 5 points. And you don't know which question is worth the greater amount of points. So like that was something that we needed to do, like to try to figure out. And then the other thing I'm going to say is it was kind of challenging because you don't know what to study. If you don't have a good support system, you don't know. And then it's kind of like maneuvering life, because even to find a preceptor is kind of hard because there's not a list to be like, hey, you can talk to this person and they're going to precept you. You got to really know somebody to know somebody to know something about it. Like my second preceptor basically has trained a lot of Black student midwives from all over the country. Like some of my closest midwifery friends don't even live in Ohio. I got friends from the DMV area, West Virginia, everywhere. But just think about that as a Black woman that they had to come from. I had one that came from Canada. You got to come all the way from Canada to Kentucky to be able to precept. So like, while some people be like, oh yeah, the apprenticeship route seems like the journey, but it's like you're gonna spend money there too. And then on top of that, you had to get your own training. So like, I did the best trainings, which is birth skills, emergency training. I did some breech trainings, like, because at the end of the day, you still have to do those trainings. You still have to know that. Still had to do NRP, CPR. The good thing about CPR is I'm a CPR instructor. It's like it's a lot of things that you got to figure out how to maneuver. And that's regardless of whatever route you take. Because even if you went to a MECA accredited school, you still got to find a preceptor, and it's still a secret handshake because there is no list readily available to be like, hey, this preceptor isn't available or this person is available. And then you got to hope that they even take you. So it has its challenges. It's basically jumping through hurdles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the preceptor part being a really big barrier for me, because I remember going I still had planned to go to the Utah College of Midwives, and I did remember seeing the sort of second track, the apprenticeship part, and that led me on a journey of trying to find out who in Ohio, were preceptors, some certified professional midwives. And I literally, I think maybe I found um two here, and I did reach out to both of them, which they were fine, but it was so limited, you know what I mean? I just remember it just being so limited, and I kept thinking, like, how are you supposed to navigate this freaking world, like this birth world? Like, this is so crazy, you know what I mean? And like you said, jumping through those hoops and things like that. And the Mecca is the Mecca, you called it MEAC, which is the route that you take when you are going for your professional midwifery certification, as opposed to the other one is NARM, which is for certified nurse midwifery and and certified midwifery. I'm sorry. So there's 4 different types of midwives, and I actually made a presentation for this, and I might briefly go through it at the end. But there are 4 types of midwives. You have your certified nurse midwife, you have your certified midwife. And both of those require you to have a graduate degree. And actually, here in Ohio, there are no certified midwives here in Ohio. It's only really specific for certain states. So like New York, you can be a CNM or a CM. Here in Ohio, we really only have the credential for certified nurse midwifery. The third type of midwife is a certified professional midwife. And that is that's the track that Jacqueline is going down, in terms of her taking the exam that's coming up, and she's passed already. So she is a certified certified professional midwife as of March 9th, because we putting it out there. Right. And then the fourth type of midwife is a community/traditional midwife, who doesn't have the more formal training, so to speak. But they more than likely have just learned from experience, or they just do their own trainings, individualized trainings, outside of what a school would prescribe, for them to do. So those are the 4 types of midwives. And then of course you get into midwife assistant, which Marlene has done a lot of that work. And what we are trying to do, and one of our goals with All About Moms, is to increase the birth workforce. And of course, with that, having to navigate and help break down like what that means, and so that it's easier to do. So yeah. Deja, do you want to talk a little bit about your training? You already kind of touched on it in your initial speech, but can you touch on a little bit about your training journey,
Say your
education
prayers. Say your
journey?
prayers. Yes. So becoming a doula is not as complicated as becoming a midwife. Like it was fairly easy, but I'm the type of person who I'm self-taught in a lot of areas. So I went on and got extra books and studied the placenta, and I just did like my own research. But when I first got into it, like I said, I started shadowing my doula at first. And then I was like taking like little doula courses that you will find like online that people on, like some of the people that I look up to or I'm inspired by on Instagram, like they would hold certain courses and things like that. So I did those type of courses. I'm actually doing one right now online, and then I'm going to California to do an in-person one, just to I mean, you can never know enough. And then for like in order to get certified through Nevada, they want you to go through like certain foundations that they have listed. So even if you did become certified through these other courses, they're like, well, in order for us to approve you, it needs to be this list. And so that's when I went through UNLV, because I did go through, at first I went through DONA, but I mean, not to throw shade on them or nothing, but they don't always have the best reputation. And so I'm real big on integrity and things like that. And I've just seen too many women talk about not having a really good experience with them. So I did attend some of their classes online, but I went to the 2-day UNLV courses, and then I had to get my CPR certification, and they just like approve you online, and then it needs to be renewed every 5 years. So but like I said, like I'm a deep like truth seeker, so I'll be like reading the midwifery books. Like I'm like way far, like I'm much more than a doula, let's just say that. I'm really deep into the food and things like that. So because a lot of women come to me about having high blood pressure, certain things that happens during pregnancy that's due to nutrition. And so I kind of took like their training and other trainings that I've done online, and further my knowledge through purchasing books that I don't have to, and just following other women that I'm inspired by and learning more through them. So I would say it was fairly easier to get certified as a doula, but the price, it does varies between different companies. So when I went through UNLV, they charged $1,000, but there are some companies that allows you to do payment plans and things like that. So yeah, that's how I got my certification.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I went through DONA. That was my initial doula training. I went through DONA, did a 3-day training, and I was like, this was fine. But I wanted to do community based, and that was more built for like a business model, which now I actually can appreciate at least having that foundation, that piece of it, right? Because I've sort of moved into this place where I prefer it to be more like a hybrid. You want to serve clients that can pay you, but you also want to serve clients that may not be able to pay you, right? And so then it becomes the balancing act and of that, right? And I'm working on a fundraising campaign for All About Moms and a bunch of other nonprofit organizations, where it's called Sow 100 Seeds. But the point of it is that anybody can be a philanthropist by just donating $100 one time, right? Because the point of it is to decenter foundations and decenter government, because what ends up happening when you put politics in birth, which that's what completely turned me off from, with Birth and Beautiful Communities, even though that's my baby. I started it. I loved it. I poured everything that I had into that, but it really just got consumed with the politics. And I couldn't figure out why I was having this disconnect, but that's what it was. And so I needed to step out of that framework so that I can go back to the drawing board and figure out a different way to be able to raise money, because I'm like, I still want to be able to serve women, but I don't want to have to serve women with all of these strings attached and with all of this paperwork and with all of these things. I'm like, my God, women are just having babies and we've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. Like, why do I have to tell you about every single aspect of that? Like, it's too much, and it actually deflects and it takes away from it being heart-centered, right? And so it's like everything for me in this season is around, is this in alignment and from the heart, right? Because again, that's what birth is. Birth is so sacred that I don't want nothing messing with that. Like, I don't want anything interfering with the sanctity of birth and motherhood, because it's so precious, right? And I'm going to say this because I say how, like, it makes a difference about that bond from the very beginning, right? We want to help women to establish the bond with their babies from the very beginning, from when they're in the womb to when they come out of the womb, and the breastfeeding. Because when I look around and I see issues within our communities, I'm always, I see kids and I'm like, where your mama at? Where your mama at? Like, that's always, it's fine that your daddy is around, but where's your mother, right? Because it does something to us as humans, right? That we need that connection and that bonding with our children. And it just makes such a difference in their development on up to their adulthood. And it could change the trajectory of someone's life, whether or not they have this bond with their mothers, right? And so what we are working to do is to establish that and to keep that there. And so we doing that through various, channels and in various ways. But we do have a doula training. We actually have a doula refresher coming up, and that's just for those people who are either birthwork curious, or those people who have been out of the birth field for some time and they're re-entering the birth field, maybe as a doula, whatever, and they just need a refresher. Like myself, I need a refresher. This was part of the reason, because I haven't attended a birth in years, actually, and I'm coming up on attending a birth, pretty soon. So I do have some more questions for y'all, but I want to quickly kind of move through this PowerPoint just very quickly, because who wants to look at a PowerPoint? I would rather have a discussion. But I thought it was important for me to at least put some points together around, the different types of professions in birth. So if you see this slide here, we have everything from a doula, au pair, which, I even use that from, because we don't usually have au pair or a monitress here in the United States, but over in the UK, which I tell Marlene all the time, like, I'm always looking at what they doing over in the UK, because they done figured out birth a whole lot better than the United States have. They've just figured out parenthood, motherhood, and birth much better than the United States have. So I'm always taking pointers from, the UK. But you have a nutrition counselor on here, the night nurse, concierge, you get into even the chiropractor, it's one on here that, and I'm going to just say chiropractor slash, is it, I saw an osteopathic doctor. I follow him on TikTok, and I wanted to put the videos in our meeting tonight, but he like moves these newborns. Oh yeah, I will. Sonographer, yes, that's a good one. I'll add that. And yeah, if y'all see something that's not on here, feel free to put it in the chat so that I can add it to the presentation. But absolutely a sonographer. And then Emily, she does music therapy, right? And that's something else that can that's a part of one of the birth professions. But anyway, this osteopathic doctor, what he does is he helps babies to pass their gas, right? So he takes these videos of him like massaging the babies and moving their bodies all around. And I mean, the babies are just unloading gas. You know what I mean? Like it's cute and it's funny, but it's also like realistic, right? And it's like these things. He's basically teaching parents how to massage their babies so that the babies can not be so stuffed up with gas. So there are just so many. The photographer, right, the videographer, there are fitness trainers, like there are fitness trainers who prefer to work with postpartum moms, or prenatal yoga. Like we've seen these things. So there are just like so many different ways in which you can satisfy your baby and mom tooth by getting into this work. So this is pretty much the same thing. I just broke it down into it being medical. Like as you can see, the OBGYN, a certified nurse midwife, certified midwife, and nurse labor and delivery are all under medical. And then you have the art, and then education, being a childbirth educator, lactation consultant, being a doula trainer, which India isn't on here tonight, but India is a doula trainer. She basically was at the very beginning with me with BBC. She done trained over 250 women to become doulas. There's also birth coach and mentor, which I consider myself to be a birth coach as it relates to, I actually work with women who are aspiring to be in the birth field. And then like Marlene, for example, she's more of a doula mentor or a doula coach or a birth coach. I mean, birth mentor, because then she mentors those who are already doulas, and helps them to take their businesses and their skills to the next level. Again, the fitness trainer, and then over here, the specialists, as we see, like the doulas, right? But under doulas, you also have the birth doulas and postpartum doulas and the bereavement doulas. So again, there are just so many different ways in which, yeah, but look, I already said all of this. But this is me showing here like how this requires, higher education, at least a 4-year degree, for you to be able to do this. The art, there's no degree requirement, just tools, software practice, passion, and editing skills development. In education, we have the childbirth educator, which again, I'm a really big fan of having in-person classes for childbirth education for moms, getting to know one another while they are getting all their questions answered. The lactation consultant, which is, responsible for teaching the mom how to breastfeed and teaching the baby how to feed as well too. And then yeah, I'll add the sonographer would fall under medical, wouldn't it? Because they have to go to college to be able to do that, or some sort of training on this. I have a little gift I'd like to give to you. Yeah, so I already talked about the difference between the 4 midwives, but this is just like a more of a breakdown to what that is. And I put NARM on here, but it's actually MEAC for the certified.
No, NARM can go under that one too, because once you go to an MEAC school, you still have to take the NARM. You still have to take NARM.
Okay.
So you're still right.
Okay, got it. And this is just the last row, bless you. The last row really like shows where these midwives can practice at, right? So the certified professional midwife can do home births and birthing centers. Meanwhile, the certified midwife can do home births and birthing centers. Oh, did I mean to put that? I don't know if I meant to put that under home birth. The certified nurse midwife, generally they do hospital and birthing centers, but I have been seeing certified nurse midwives break out of the hospital and start doing home births, which that really wasn't a thing of the past, but I've recently seen certified nurse midwives saying, I'm not doing hospitals, I want to do home births, and that being a thing. And then the traditional community midwives generally do home births. And then this is just an overview of the doulas. You know, doulas, birth doulas focus more on pregnancy, labor and delivery, and they help to create a plan for the birth. Whereas postpartum is up to 1 year after the birth, and they're really there to support the mother and the family during the developmental milestones of the baby. And then they are there to also help to plan for life after the birth, which is such a very important point that we skip. And Marlene and I were just talking about this the other day at the class. Is like the plan for the postpartum plan is probably even more important than the birth plan. And it's something that we skip over, but you have to think about the transition that this mother and this father and this family is making by bringing this new baby into their lives. And so incorporating a new baby into your life is a lot of work, right? Because when you used to just be able to just, you know, grab your coat and go out the door, that's no longer the case anymore, right? You got to also now think about packing somebody up just to take a 5 to 10 minute trip. And that can bring on a lot of emotional, you know, feelings. And so having that postpartum plan is important. And then you also have the bereavement piece as well, too, for those doulas who are interested in supporting families through grief, you know, having a miscarriage, having a ectopic pregnancy, you know, we have, you know, when having a stillborn, you know what I mean, or having a baby that did live outside of the womb but didn't make it, you know, for whatever reason. Those are all avenues for doula training. So I don't know. I put this on here as I said, this will be my dream birth team. So think about what your dream birth team would look like. I would definitely want a midwife, a birth and postpartum doula, all of the works, but definitely a massage therapist for myself too. My child is 16, so it's been a long time since I've given birth. And I did not have any of these people present at that birth 16 years ago. But if I ever was to give birth again, even though my son, he always roll his eyes at me when I tell him like, oh, I might have another baby. And he like, yeah, whatever. One day I might be able to do that. So this right here is just our upcoming events. Again, we have a doula refresher that's on March 9th. That's online on Zoom. And again, that is for the doula curious. That's for trained doulas, lactation consultants, and other birth workers looking to rekindle their expertise or re-enter the world of birth support. And this is just a 1-day, 4-hour training. You get materials to keep, and you know, just an overview of birth and a lot of things that come along with that. And then we also have a 3-day training that's coming up March 22nd through the 24th. And this training is, as you can see India, she'll be doing that training. And that's an in-person training that's in Cleveland. So that is the end of my presentation. Let me stop sharing my screen. Told y'all it'll be quick. Oh, here we go. Stop sharing. Okay. So I want to ask Jacqueline and Deja one last question, and then we can go to like Q&A if anybody has questions. And that is simply like, what is your advice to aspiring birth workers, no matter, we saw that whole list, right? No matter where they're entering or how they're entering, what is your advice to those aspiring birth workers?
Set boundaries early and often. Make sure you got like some type of mental health support. In all honesty, because you're gonna have births that are gonna be harder than others. You're gonna experience things. So mental health therapy. Get you a therapist. And then study. Oh, and this is not work that you can do alone, contrary to what anybody ever tells you. Do not do this work alone because you're gonna burn out fast and quickly. And then just always have a plan A, B, C, D. Like always have a backup to the backup to the backup, because things happen so quickly, things change so quickly. And lastly, be prepared to miss out on family events. Like Be prepared to miss out on birthdays. Be prepared to miss out on Christmas, or be prepared to take those months off. And don't think that this is something that you're gonna be. I don't care what nobody say. People say, "Oh, like I've been ran across birth workers is like I'm gonna be a millionaire off of this," and I'm like, how? Because how much are you charging the client? Because at the end of the day, there's only so many births you can do before you hit that wall and slide down that wall. So those are my advice for you guys.
So let me ask you this though, just to expand on the one point that you said. So when you said you can't do this work alone, what do you mean by that? Who is the team of people that
So
you
for
depend on?
me, as a midwife, I have a birth assistant. I have a second midwife. Um, I have childbirth educators that I pretty much go to. And then I also like the second midwife is very important for me because what happens if I'm at a birth and one of my clients because go into labor while I'm at another birth? So you always have to have a backup. And then it's good to have a team because sometimes like there are things that go on and you be like, I need to bounce this off of something. I need to call in a consult. And it's good to have that. So like you definitely should do this work in community. And that's even as a doula, because before I was a midwife, I was a doula for a minute and I still run a doula agency. And I see a lot of people that go through doula trainings. And then after they do the doula trainings, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do it on my own. And be like, do you got a backup? Like I ain't telling you can't do it on your own, but do you have a backup? And if you don't, what happens if your kid gets sick? Do you just
Mhm.
not show up for that client? So these are things that you need to think about. Oh, and I'm gonna say, I don't care what nobody tell y'all. Like y'all can take the classes, whatever, but do an observe phase or do a trial run, do something. I really would love to see something like, so you think you want to be a birth worker, and we just randomly call y'all at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning for y'all to get out of the bed and go to a birth, because it's a lot of people that miss births because they're like, oh, I slept through it, or oh, I didn't do that. Like there are a lot of things in the last couple of years that I've been doing this work, and I'm like, actually, is this really, are you sure this is what you want to do? Because sometimes we fall in love with the idea. It's kind of like when people say they want to have a home birth, but they don't want to put in any of the work. It's like we romanticize what home birth is. So we romanticize what birth work is. And then when you hit the reality of what birth work actually is, it's kind of like a cultural shock. So I'm telling you, like, dip your toe in, follow some birth workers around. Like I do, like when Deja was like, I followed, like, even though she may not have had the, like, she may not have liked the way that her former doula did things, she followed her around and she's seen things that she could do better or whatever. Like, so definitely follow different, and don't just follow one birth worker, follow different birth workers, because you're gonna learn different styles, but it's also gonna give you the opportunity to be like, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to live my life on call?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. That's very helpful. Deja.
So I would say all of that. I agree to all of that. I also want to add having a strong why, because I think that is what's going to really keep you in this field if you have a strong why and not just doing it because you seeing other people do it or you doing it for money or whatever. Just having a strong why. The second thing that I would say is make sure that the clients you are taking on, you guys are the right fit for each other and you're in alignment with each other. Don't just take on every single client just because you're available to do it. Because it can be a horror story. Okay. And then the third thing I would say is have a mentor. I feel like no matter how like some of the most successful people in this world, and not just in this field, but period, have a mentor still to this day. Billionaires, millionaires, whoever, they have a mentor. So I would say have a mentor in this field. So I think those would be my top three.
Mhm. Thank you so much. So India, she joined. Not that you necessarily have to come on, but I just want to shout you out because you have mentioned you several times already. Um, so yeah. So does anyone have any questions? That pretty much kind of wraps up. Did we not touch on something that you all might have a question or concern about? And let me just throw this out here too, is that you can hit me up. I can leave my contact information, in the chat. If you are interested in just you need more pointers around navigating the space, right? Because again, the question still remains, how do I enter this, right? You can enter through doing a doula training. You can enter by, linking up with someone like I said, India's trained over 250 doulas. We all started at Birth and Beautiful Communities, built it from the ground up. So we have a network, an outstanding network of doulas. Like we know doulas, we know birth workers, right? Like, so if, you know, wherever you are, if you need, support in trying to, observe other people in the field or whatever, then that's something that we can arrange and kind of support that process. Um, and yeah, so are there any questions or comments or concerns? Shouldn't be concerns, but if you're concerned about something, let me know. I'm a good counselor advisor too.
I was gonna say what is the name of the type of like you said that you was following somebody on TikTok when they help the babies like pass gas. What is that called again?
He's a osteopathic doctor.
Okay, because I've been recently obsessed with watching certified infant massage therapists. And so they just like massage babies, and then they have this thing where like they put the babies in the swimming pool and things like that. And I've kind of been obsessed with that. So I didn't notice that was on your thing, and I didn't know if that was something that you wanted to add, but I did see that they offered those type of classes at UNLV for certified infant massage therapists.
Yeah, so specifically, so I did have massage therapists on there, but do you mean like a specific, like certified, what did you call it? A certified?
Yeah, so they just only massage babies.
Oh, okay.
So they don't do adults or anything. They just massage like I think it's like newborns to like a certain age, like before the age of 1. Okay.
They also do that in the NICU. A lot of the occupational therapists have that training and work with the babies, like the premature babies as well.
Okay. All right, it's setting that up. Will it let you do? Oh, wait a minute. Why is this playing back like this? Can you all still hear me? Can you all still hear me? Should I do
Yeah, I can still hear you.
on YouTube? Okay. They won't let you do Facebook and YouTube at the same time. I don't know why YouTube is talking to me. I'm trying to get the video. All right, I'm about to share my screen again real quick. I want to show just this TikTok video I was just talking about. Okay, TikTok. All I kept thinking about was just, I was like, oh my God, I know he just feels so much relief, you know. But again, you know, anything that when I see the babies and stuff like that, that always catch my attention. But yeah, that's an osteopathic doctor right there, which also just looks like massage too, right? You know, and I used to have a contact with a young lady who used to do perinatal massage specifically. And I would like to see that again, like, you know, with what we are building now. So yeah, that's important. Any other questions or comments? I hope this was helpful to those who came on and participated. I really, really appreciate it. I can't express gratitude enough. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you so much, Deja.
No
Uh,
problem.
and
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for having me as well. I'm so happy that I could help out.
Can I ask a question?
sure.
The doula training that's in March that you're offering, is that because I know you talked a little bit about like several different organizations providing doula training. Um, is that something that if we took, we would be like quote unquote certified, or are there additional trainings that you have to do after that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, you would be certified through us, through our organization. So India is on the call right now, and I'm sorry, India. She said she didn't feel well, but so India is the original trainer from Birth and Beautiful Communities. So she's trained she's trained most doulas in Cleveland, basically. And so she is the trainer, and then our organization certifies the trainers, I'm sorry, the doulas, after the training, but it's ongoing support as well. So it's not you take the training and we throw you to the wolves and you just out there. It's training where we've been in this work for a long time. We support you through it. We have women coming to us. I did just start a list for those client people who want services to be able to sign up, because it's just a natural role that we end up kind of playing as an intermediary, you know, between the doulas and the women that we train and for those who are looking for doula services. So yeah, just to answer your question is you will be certified through our organization. And let me put my contact information here. If you have any questions, then you could just shoot me a text or shoot us an email. allaboutmoms.org. That's my contact information. Yeah. All right. Well, if we have no more questions, then again, I just want to say thank you all. I'll be doing this again, you know, at some point in time, and probably in April. Um, so yeah, we love word of mouth. So get it out there. We want to increase the number of women that's in the birth field. Like that's the part of the goal, right? And so we got to keep having these conversations and keep supporting women who are trying to break through this field, and then support those women who are already in this field of work. And yeah, let's help Mother Nature get back to her roots and her femininity. So that's what we doing. Let's get these babies in here. All right, ladies. Have a good night.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Um, so I know that Jacqueline was talking about mentorship in midwifery. Um, is that something that also could occur in doula training? Like after the like 3-day training, are there opportunities for mentorship as a doula as well?
Yeah, we actually have, let me put our link tree in here because there's a form on there if you interested in mentorship that you can fill out. And it's like way that it's set up right now, and we would, if you wanted to do that, then we would just have a conversation beforehand. But the way that it's set up is there's like a monthly membership fee, so to speak. It's a small fee, it's like under $50 or something like that. It's just that so that you get into the community of larger networks and doulas, but then it also comes with a matching service too, right? So if you decide to enter this mentorship group, then again, it serves as us being sort of an intermediary. So as people are coming through, we might link them with you, you know what I'm saying? And then instead of charging, like most doula agencies will charge like I think Marlene, you had said the one charged like a 60-40% split or something like that. Like we not doing it like that, 70-30. Yeah, like we weren't not doing it like that. It's more so of a of just a fee month to month. And like let's say you get a client that come through or whatever, then you would have your own prices and discuss your own prices with that person. This is just to offer the additional support because most doula agencies don't offer the support with them matching you. You just match and you match, right? This is right. It's the sisterhood, which is so deeply important to us because we want to make sure that you are doing well. It's not just we, certify you, train you, and you go out there. It's more we want to make sure that you're doing well. We want to support you on your journey. We want to be you to be able to call us, if you need support. And that's what, so it's really rebuilding the sisterhood around birth work. But let me put the link in here. Yeah.
And then is that training in March sort of just like a big picture holistic, or is it specific to birth and bereavement? Like if I wanted to work specifically with bereavement, would that be a good training to take?
It will touch on it, but it's not the full, it's a birth and postpartum training. And we probably should speak about that too. I think that, so Marlene, is the one that you would recommend still Sufficient Grace? Yeah. She said Sufficient Grace has one in April.
Okay. I think, do they also have photographers that come to after death? Yeah, I think I've worked with a couple of the photographers in the hospital.
Yeah, she said they do. They do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Marlene, she recommends them. She has been a fan of theirs, and they work around bereavement.
This might be a dumb question, but is it more minority based or is it more white people? Because I think
It's more white people.
huh?
Sufficient Grace is more white people.
That's what I wondered. I think what was always frustrating to me in the hospital was number one, anytime someone came in to the hospital after a home birth, all of the like bad mouthing and judgment that was happening like outside of the room. And then the fact that because we are existing in like a society where a lot of your caregivers are white, when you have patients who are Black or a person of color, then you just see like the difference in care. And I think this is the first time that I've listened to a training and felt actual empathy from the trainers and from the people on the panel. Um and I think as a white person, if I can find ways to use that privilege to help other people learn about birth work, I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts in my head right now.
So it's okay. It's okay. And I think that what we more so see though is what I talked about at the very beginning is that our society is so stiff and stoic and is more masculine, more so than race, right? Like, because we have Black providers in the spaces that do the same thing, you know what I mean? So it's more of this stiff, stoic, without heart, without compassion, without empathy, because that's just what we all have been conditioned in, right? That's what we all have been conditioned to do. That's kind of how we all have been conditioned to approach it. Versus what we're doing is like, no, there has to be empathy and compassion and grace within this work because we are talking about birth and this is very vulnerable and this is life changing for all parties involved, right? So what we are doing is getting back to the more feminine side of what it looks like right now in our world. There's an imbalance, and that's why we see it looks chaotic, is because it's an imbalance. There's not enough of the feminine aspect of it that's soft, that's inviting, that's nurturing, that's compassionate, that really cares, that wants to hear what's going on with you, what's happening, how can I support you, because human to human, not because this is business and we got to get you in, we got to get you out, we got to, do that. So we have all fallen victim, so to speak, right, to that more hard body, judgmental, tone, right? And so what we are doing is restoring, which is why our mission statement is we are preserving the sanctity of birth and motherhood.
Mhm.
Because preserving it, means that we are getting back to this basic and this root of where it all began in the first place, which is in the womb, right? So how do we usher that energy forward? And
Right.
how do we sprinkle that energy around our, if we want to solve, for example, infant mortality, right? It's not going to take another DEI initiative or racial equity workshop that's going to solve infant mortality, right? Infant mortality exists because women don't know anything about our bodies and we have given our power away. And we believe that an outside entity knows more about our bodies than we do ourselves. And so it's more of an empowerment aspect. It's more of a let's teach you about your body and how powerful and how intelligent your body is and how you can listen to your body, right? Because then that falls into nutrition and the things that you're attracted to eating. And so there's so many aspects of it. And so what we are doing is restoring the more feminine aspect of this.
And I think if women have that empowerment and the knowledge behind it, then instead of being unheard when they speak up about their bodies, they can say, no, I know that this is true. Like, I need you to hear me. I need you to listen to me. Because that's another part of working in the hospital, that you become so conditioned to seeing the worst and like hearing the worst, that when someone brings up something about themselves, then what I see is that you're not really listened to, you're not really heard. And if you had been listened to, so many things could have been avoided in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a part of the doula's job, right, is being able to advocate on, her behalf when perhaps she can't because she just in the throes of labor and that's just what it is. But ultimately, we have to learn to be the advocate for ourselves and
Mm.
to we have to know that we hold the power. And when we say stop, then it must stop, right? And when we say no, it's a complete sentence. Or I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna walk out of here, right? Or I'm just gonna opt to have my baby at home. Or I'm gonna opt to have my baby at a birthing center or a place where I know there's empathy and compassion, and I'll just make the choice to not do hospitals.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was good. Yeah, because it brings up, and listen, and of course I'm not negating the racial aspects of it, right? But that's another thing, another layer that society has brought on to sort of to deflect from where the true nature of this is coming from. And we have to understand that this is very spiritual, because we're talking about energy, and that doesn't have a race. What it is us not feeling and knowing anything about our bodies. And we have been told, and then we're gaslit a lot of times, right? Because you say something wrong with your body and something going on, they're like, no, you're fine.
Right.
Meanwhile, your body is like, no,
Not
something
fine.
is going on
Right.
here.
And I think that's hard because, like, especially coming from a place where people come to the hospital from all walks of life and they have like various levels of medical literacy. If you walk into a room and you say something's wrong with my body, and someone in a position of power taking care of you says, no, you're fine, then I guess what you're going to do is you're going to say, oh, okay, I must be fine. Instead of, no, I know something's wrong. I need you to help me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're in labor. There's so many times when I've seen it happen where the woman or the partner is there, they're trying to advocate, they're trying to say, listen, listen, listen. And then they're just like, the medical team's just not listening.
Yeah, and so we just have to simply stop giving our power over to entities that don't respect our voices, you know.
Right.
I mean, and so this is an alternative, right? Which is why it's important to educate women on the different roles in birth work, so that we see that if you choose to go the medical route and you want to enter it that way, that's totally fine. That's available to you too. But there's a whole other world of other birth professions that doesn't require you being in a hospital, that women are going to start to wake up to. Because another part of this, you know, one of the things that's really important to us within our mission is helping to close the gap in the perinatal deserts. Like, there's over 1,200 perinatal deserts across the United States where there's no medical care or midwives or anybody around to help support these women in birth, right? And so that's not going to be solved by a hospital, right? That's going to be solved by everyday people like us, who are training more people within that town or that vicinity to be midwives, to be doulas, to be lactation consultants and childbirth educators, and all of those lay positions, so to speak, right? This is what feminine energy and women do, right? Like, I am going to make this a gender thing, right? And in a lot of ways, because it's in our nature as women in a lot of ways to, we naturally give that sort of care, compassion, nourishment, and nurturing, right? And Marlene said, yes, those are heart issues that has to be changed on an individual basis. That is so true. And that's why that doesn't necessarily work if you give the medical staff a training in REI or DEI or legislate, right? You cannot legislate what's in the heart.
Right.
Can't. And so we have to find an alternative way by getting back to our hearts and then reaching out to other women to help them tap back into their hearts, because we've all been conditioned by this heartless society.
Well, and then I think you approach DEI with that heartless mindset. If you're forced to take a training at a hospital because it's quote unquote required, then you're not going to be open to what's the message that's being sent to you, or even receive the message.
Right. Absolutely. So this is our alternative. I'm an advocate for home births and birthing centers, and I think that hospitals are fine if something is wrong. But I think that in all of the countries that have way better birth outcomes than us, that the births are primarily attended by midwives, for one. For two, they end up having those options around home birthing or birthing center isn't necessarily a medical thing, right? And so again, we are just wanting to return to our nature around birth, like, because I'm like, we've been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. Like,
Before hospitals were a thing.
right, our bodies have been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. Let's honor our bodies in a way that says we respect you. We know that you know what you're doing. How can we, as the birth team, support your body that already knows what it's doing to get this baby here safely and make sure that you are safe and make sure that you are continue to be cared for even after the birth of this baby? How do we come around you as a community and as a village?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I could talk to you all night.
I was about to say, we could talk about this all day. This is my thing. And I always have to shout out Marlene. Marlene said, not even forced until one gets their own convictions, they won't change. That's true. But the woman has to tap into herself first. Yes, that's key. That's key. And that's the part of our work, right? Is helping women to tap back in there. I have a women's mentorship group that I do every Thursday. And a lot of our conversations is about that, like tapping back into our hearts because we've lost it. We've forgotten our hearts.
No, you
And
were told to ignore it.
yeah. And it's time for us to get back to it because it's like our species at this point of our time in our society is like, we have to change. It can't continue to go on the way that it has. So yeah, but shout out to Marlene for being on my back for the last 3 years about getting back into birth because I wasn't. But I'm so happy she talked to me the way she needed to talk to me because this is my heart. I can talk about this all day up and down. I love it so much. So yeah. Thank you all so much. Take down the contact information if you need it and reach out if you need to. But yeah, till next time, ladies, y'all have a good night.
Thank you.